Hello and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. Hey, we got a good time set up for tonight. We're going to have our usual fishing reports, and I'm sure we'll have some laughs with the boys. But tonight I want to be a little more serious for an evening. Guys, things are changing in America at a breakneck speed. And we got a lot of threats on the horizon that I'm not sure a lot of people are aware about. I want to make sure they get that way. I also want to make it easy for people to contact the guys in charge to try and get some of this stuff stopped. You'll see what I mean as we work our way around the state. So let's get rolling. Florida Sportsman Action Spotter is brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum. Oh, it's the best chum on earth, all right. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream billfish destination. By D.O.A. Lures, it's the unfair advantage. By Young Boats, you want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids, you better check out youngboats.com. By the Castaway Hat Co, the hat that's helping save our seas. And by Academy Sports and Outdoors, right stuff, low price, every day. Let's get it rolling with a quick stop in Nosara, Costa Rica, and check in with our buddy Craig Sutton. Time for our first stop this evening, and it is my favorite stop. I tell you, I wish I was headed there next week. This is the time of year I love there so much. Let's stop in Nosara, Costa Rica, and check in with one Craig Sutton. Craigie, how are you?
Man, I'm good, Ricky. Just got home from Costa Rica late Friday night, but pretty good trip. I kind of stunk it up, but I was fishing in the afternoon. It was a strictly morning bite from Tuesday on, but big marlin week. Big marlin week.
Good.
Yeah, we had doubles on the Discover one morning, went 2 for 4.
Ooh.
One's a real nice fish. I sent you the pictures of that one. I think I'm calling it 450.
I called it 4, so we got to be in there close. Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere thereabouts. Nice, strong, big fish. And Explorer had 2 on, let me think, Thursday. Got 1 for 2. Pretty much that was the same with the Wonder. They got 1 for 2, and the Discover did 1 that day too, with 1 for 2. But it was a good, solid week on marlin bite. There was quite a few Dorado, and there was a couple big ones. In fact, a guy, Juan La Vesquez, that does some writing for Florida Sportsman, had a real nice one earlier in the week, and I missed a real big one on Wednesday. I mean, gosh, he looked like his mouth come up behind the teaser, and he looked like a 5-gallon bucket. It was just a big old head, but he hit the teaser and kind of half-heartedly hit the short bait and then just ran off. I mean, those big ones, I guess they don't get big by being stupid.
Craig, that's something that has bothered me since the first time I ever went marlin fishing. We used to pull a daisy chain of bowling pins, and if that's not the deadliest teaser, I don't know what is. I mean, going through the Bahamas with those 6 or 8 bonita chasing the back of the boat, I mean, it's hard to beat that for a teaser. And so often, a smoking hot big marlin would come in, and he'd whack that teaser, and it just seemed to put some doubt in his mind, because when he showed up behind the bait and ate, it wasn't an explosive strike. Now, if he came into the first thing he saw and it was a bait, then it was an explosive strike. So I always wondered, do we help ourselves? I'm talking specifically with blue marlin. Do we help ourselves pulling teasers or not?
Well, we always put a bait at the end of our teaser without a hook in it. And you're right about that. I mean, our area of Costa Rica was the bait where the bait and switch was developed, 60 years ago. And our fish are super aggressive. But, yeah, we've learned to put a naked, big old horse ballyhoo and no hook in it at the back of that teaser and let him get something, let him get something in his mouth and get him hungry. And then hopefully he hits one that you drop back to him with a hook in it. But, that was kind of the secret for the soft head lures back.
Sure was.
30 years ago, 20 years ago. They were soft and the fish didn't spook off as much. But there's some marlin come in. They're not spooking off for nothing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're gonna eat something. But more times than not, I had one marlin come in. He hit about 3 or 4 baits, and I had my short pitch bait in my left hand. He popped the outrigger out of the clip. I had it ready, so I had my left hand in the pole with the pole in my hand, ready to drop back, and then I had my right hand on the reel and the rod holder. He come in, hit that outrigger bait. I dropped back to him, got the hook to him, and got about 2 jumps, and he did a couple zigzags, and then took off and clipped the line.
Yeah, that happens. They get tail whipped. All kind of stuff happens. And
yeah, they're big. That's
Craig,
big fish fishing.
Craig, as Barry Vickers said to me when we lost one 25, 30 years ago, he said, Cap, if we're going to win every fight we get in, I don't want to play. And,
well, I do. I feel the same way. But, I've been, in the last 2 or 3 times I've been there, the bite has been just strictly a morning bite. And I'm getting the stragglers by the time I get on the boat at 12 or 1 o'clock and try to get me a fish. And it's been frustrating, but our clients is more important than me, and they're getting a lot of marlin and releasing them. We got a couple guys from Florida, a couple guys from Texas got them, and actually 3 different groups from Florida. But it's nice when the clients get them because that really is a fish of a lifetime.
Craigie, there's not only that. They pay the bills, brother. All right, this is supposed to be a business we're running here. Let's make sure the clients catch marlin, okay? You and I'll catch ours later. Cap, as always, we appreciate it. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Right. I'll be looking forward to it.
Me too. Craig Sutton. Time to hit Northeast Florida. That's David Borey's country. Captain David, how are you?
Hey, Ricky, I'm doing good, buddy.
Good. I'm glad. It seems to me like you've got one of your favorite tides coming up here real soon, don't you?
It will be. We'll be getting the flood tides. We didn't get any at the end of August, like we do some years. But coming up in another week, we should be getting some flood tides, which I absolutely love to throw the fly rods up on the grass and catch these tailing reds. But let me tell you what we've got this week. This week's been a tough week, and it sort of made me think about some things, the way these fish move, how in Florida, how important the tides are to us. And I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but if you fish in Northeast Florida inshore, you know that the tides are so important to us. And it's pretty much, we say you live and die by the tides. Well, this week we end up having high tides early in the morning, and basically an incoming tide. So we get none of the outgoing tide, which is our favorite tide to fish because we feel like the fish are coming towards us. We feel like the fish are coming out of the creeks, coming out to the points, heading out to the creek mouth. So, the fish are sort of, instead of swimming away from you like they do in high tide, where they're able to get up onto the flats, get back into the creeks and sort of just stay out of your reach. Well, on that outgoing tide, they're coming to you. But this week we haven't had that, so we've had to fish this high tide. So what do I do when I get those situations? Well, I try to time my trips right at the peak of that high. And I'm finding the best time when I get these tides, I don't care so much for that incoming because I feel like these fish are on the move then.
Right.
But what I do like, Rick, is that 1 hour right at the top of the tide and that first hour of the drop. In other words, the peak of the tide, right around those 2 hours, is when you really want to be optimizing your fishing time. And what I'm finding this week has been that on these points, when these tides start to move out, these fish tend to congregate on these points. And the ones that have really been surprising me this week have been the trout. A really good trout bite this week, really good flounder bite this week. Not getting so many reds as I have been on that low tide, but I'm getting a lot more trout and a lot more flounder on that high peak tide.
David, and thank you very much for a great report for the week. You're primarily an inshore fisherman, but inshore fishermen need to be involved too. We've got some very real threats coming at us from the federal government. The first thing that scares me to death is the windmill leases They are now selling windmill farm leases all the way down the East Coast offshore, and boats are not going to be allowed to go into those areas where
And
the
that I
windmills
don't
are.
understand, Rick.
Okay,
I really don't understand
I don't
that.
understand that either, but listen, they are also discussing now, believe it or not, this is how screwed up our government is. Red snapper are currently undergoing overfishing. Well, we know that's absurd because we're closed.
Absolutely absurd.
We're closed 363 days a year. So
well,
now,
then what are they telling us, Rick? That then, in other words, the commercial fishery is overfishing them?
Nope. And everybody needs to understand. I hear so much of this. I'm tired of the commercials raping it and all that. They're not. The commercials can be set by poundage because every pound has to be accounted for. When a commercial boat lands, every fish they catch has to be logged and tagged and sold to the market. So we know how many fish the commercial boats are catching, and they're catching roughly.
Then who's overfishing them, Rick?
Nobody's overfishing them, David. The data's wrong. It's ridiculous. But be that as it may, the federal government is now calling for completely closed areas in red snapper habitat. They can close down, say, Mayport, Florida, which is kind of the epicenter of red snapper on the East Coast, so we won't accidentally encounter a red snapper while we're bottom fishing. This is scary stuff, David. Do I think it's going to pass? No. But do I want to make sure that our governor, our senators, Rick Scott, Marco Rubio, our congressman, John Rutherford, knows how I feel and knows how concerned about this I am? You're doggone right I do. And I want our listeners to get there too. Because I got news for you, David. There's a whole lot of us offshore fishermen, and I'm a fisherman by nature. If they ban me from fishing offshore, guess who's going to be following you around all day?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more inshore fishermen. You're
a
right.
whole lot more. Yep. Scary, scary stuff. So, David, please get a hold of and like Captain Robert Johnson is always preaching, don't cut and paste an email and think that counts. No. Sit down and write an email in your own personal words to guys like John Rutherford, who has been a champion in years past for the sport fishermen of Florida. Let Rick Scott know. Let Marco Rubio know. No, sir. A huge economy in Florida is built on sport fishing. We need to keep it thriving.
Absolutely, Rick.
All right.
I will do that.
David, please do. Thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing your report next week.
All right, Rick, I'll be here, buddy.
Thank you. Tight lines, David. Our thanks to David Voorhees for a great Northeast Florida report. Let's hit Central Florida. That's Jimmy Ross country. Jim, are you with us?
I am here, buddy. I am here.
Good deal. Jim, how is your fishing this week?
Our fishing is absolutely fantastic as long as you don't go more than about 3 miles away from the beach.
Okay. What happens?
If you get out of state waters, you are wasting gas and wasting time and wasting bait because there's not much going on offshore this week.
I see. Okay. All right. Now,
but the guys that are getting out are getting a few lane snapper, a few mangrove snapper. It's just been an off week for the offshore waters. A couple of amberjack, but if you're trying to drag a ballyhoo for a dolphin, you are wasting your time.
It ain't worth $6 a gallon.
It's not worth even buying them. But the nearshore bite is still really, really strong. We've still got those red minnows. We've got regular glass minnows. We've got pogies. And we now have fingerling mullet running down the beach. This is the first fingerlings that I've seen this week. And the snook are turning cartwheels through them big time.
Good deal.
In fact, the snook have gone completely away from eating croakers and pogies and other things out on the beach where we were catching them on those baits to, as of Thursday and Friday, if it wasn't a finger mullet, they weren't having it.
Huh. That's kind of weird.
Completely flip-flop, yes. Now, the ones at the jetties are still eating a variety of things, but I'm just talking about those beach fish. If you're a beach surf fisherman and you have been waiting for the mullet run to start, It's trickling in. Get yourself a very small, a little Rapala lip diving plug or a mirror lure suspending plug, something that looks like a fingerling mullet or a live fingerling mullet. And the easiest way to fish them is on a jig head. Put them on about a 1/4 ounce jig head with about a 3/0 to 4/0 size hook on it, and just fish them like you would fish a lure. And that's working really, really well for the surf, for the guys fishing from the beach in the surf, and also from the guys fishing from boats casting back into the surf, because the waves have been really small this week, and you can get all the way to where you can almost cast to the beach and land on the sand with your bait or lure.
I'll be darned. Jim, that's an excellent report. I hope things get better for the offshore guys soon. I got to ask you a question here. I've been made aware by several different people of some very serious threats to yours and my way of life that's coming from our federal government. One of which being closing all bottom fishing areas where we may encounter a red snapper, because, believe it or not, while we are not fishing for them, we are still catching too many. They are still undergoing overfishing. Now, we both know that's absurd, but it doesn't change the mind of the federal government. We also have right whale zones coming to where boats over a certain size, mainly your good size offshore boats, cannot exceed 10 knots until they are more than 30 miles offshore during right whale calving season, which I believe is January through May. We are also threatened with windmill leases. The government is currently selling windmill leases along the east coast of Florida. If they put in windmills, boats will not be allowed in those areas. We all know Florida thrives on sport fishing. It's a huge economy for us. We can't let it go. Who should guys in your area contact to keep this thing under control?
Well, you're definitely going to want to contact Bill Posey. He's a native of Rockledge, and he has helped in many cases with outdoor related activities, if you will, and the interests of outdoorsmen. Debbie Mayfield would be another person I would contact. I would contact Thad Altman as well. Those three in particular would be my top three go-tos. Randy Fine would be another one that I would look at trying to go to. But honestly, until we have somebody with more than two brain cells to rub against one another that's in the NOAA fishery service, it's very difficult for us to get any meaningful kind of regulations for these fish. Red snapper, as an example. Anybody that's been offshore knows that you're going to catch a red snapper. There's a very simple way to stop overfishing for red snapper. You drop your bait down. 4 guys, you, me, 2 other guys go out fishing. We drop down on a reef. We pull up 4 red snapper. Pretty common occurrence, to be honest with you. Even me and my bay boat going to 8A Reef, which is like driving to the local community, fishing hole.
Right.
I can drop down and catch a red snapper on almost any given day. You bring 1 red snapper up, 1 red snapper for me goes and starts sucking ice. 1 red snapper for you gets put on ice. The other 2 guys in the boat, they put their red snapper, and we are done bottom fishing for the day.
Right.
We're done. Now we live bait troll, we high speed troll for wahoo, we pull ballyhoo around for dolphin and sailfish and whatever. We go back inshore and we catch king mackerel, or we catch tarpon, or we snook fish on the jetty. We do something different, but you alleviate all of the unnecessary pressure that is reportedly being put on our bottom species by dropping 4 lines, pulling up 4 fish. Those 4 fish go on ice, and then you cease and desist with all bottom fishing, so there are no dead discards.
Yeah.
That's the easiest and most simple way to make this happen. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to get a group or 2. Nope. If you got a red snapper, that's it. You're done bottom fishing. You're not going to go fish for sea bass. You're not going to go fish for grouper. You're not going to go fish for other types of snapper. If you pull a red snapper up and even 1 red snapper goes on the ice, that's it. You're done.
Jim,
that will fix the problem.
Jim, that's unnecessary. We don't need it. It's hard to enforce, and it is so much better than what they're proposing. I mean, if you want to get serious, I mean,
it's not a great
right. It's not a great option.
All of those other species, then we don't really get to fish for them, and I understand that. But if they're that concerned that they're going to shut entire areas of the ocean down completely to bottom fishing,
then we do it your way.
Then this is the only way that makes any sense whatsoever for recreational fishermen to continue to be able to harvest fish when they go bottom fishing offshore.
I don't disagree with you at all, Jim. If it came to that, you regulate the size of the snapper you'll catch by the size of the bait that you'll drop, and you're decide
exactly right.
What you want to do. Now, I hate the idea. It's terrible. I'd much rather see it open to one snapper per person per day. But we don't have that option right now, so we need to fight with what we can. But
and as far as speed zones go, Rick, I mean, you know as well as I do, that's going to be almost impossible. You're going to have the Coast Guard out there running radar and tracking people.
That's easy.
Actually enforce that, though.
Jim, they want us to all have AIS devices on our boats, and that would do it.
That would do it too.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, they could do it with their radar. I mean, they could easily put a track on you on their radar. But I was going to say, if there's 100 boats out that day, they're going to have a hard time catching all 100 and writing tickets to all those guys.
I'm well aware.
Not unless we take the 87,000 employees that are going to be hired for to review your taxes and put some of those guys in boats to help keep your speed under control.
Oh, God.
Potentially hit a whale.
Jim, I'm so glad we're old and our best years are behind us. I look at all these future things, but the best thing we can do right now is contact, you're right, and don't cut and paste an email. Sit down and write an email or call their office. We have got to let our legislators know. It's beyond NOAA. Forget NOAA. We've tried that. That hasn't worked. We can't do anything with South Atlantic Council. I want Ron DeSantis, Marco Rubio to know that, no, I am not willing to give up my right to fish in Florida. No. Jim, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I look forward to it.
All right,
I'll be catching bluegill.
Sit down right now and start your letter to your congressman. You hear me?
I'm already thinking of it in my head.
Hey, by the way, I'm doing the same thing next week. I'm going to Minnesota to catch smallmouths. Talk to you later, brother. All right.
Take care, Rick.
Bye-bye, bud. Bye. Captain Jimmy Ross. Time to hop on down to my favorite little fishing village and see what's going on in Stuart, Florida. John, how they biting, buddy?
They're biting all right. They seem to have slowed down a little bit as far as sailfish goes. We've been getting 1 to 2 sailfish a day. We've been making up for it with a lot of amberjacks and snapper, in between sailfish bites. So, there's still a few around. The bait fish have been plentiful. There's been a lot of sardines, a lot of greenies. They've been pretty easy to get. So we've been mostly bump trolling and drifting live baits. And, you can expect a few blackfin tuna. We've been getting a few gaffer dolphins mixed in and as usual, a lot of bonita. So it's still been pretty steady offshore and it's been pretty calm. So definitely want to take advantage of it before September gets here. That's for sure.
John, my experience in Stuart this year for the 3 months that we were down there was it was even calmer than normal. We didn't have a whole lot of really rough days, or at least not fishable days. And bait seemed easy all summer. Am I reading that right?
Yeah. No, it was a pretty good year. We didn't have much to we had a few cold water upwellings that
right.
kind of screwed the bait up a few days, but for the most part, yeah, it was a pretty easy summer, and the fishing kind of spread out over the entire summer, and it was good all summer long. And I love when we have good summer fishing all summer long, because sometimes you just go through these lulls where you have 2 or 3 weeks where just nothing's biting.
Yeah,
and that wasn't the case this year. It was a good year to be summertime sail fishing in Stuart. That is for sure.
It sure was. Now, your wintertime fishery will start right about the end of the year, right?
Yeah, typically like right around Thanksgiving, that's when I'm really getting amped up for that wintertime sail fishery, and that's going to run right up until almost March. So pretty much Thanksgiving to like the last week of February, you can expect some stellar sail fishing, but it's typically going to be a lot rougher that time of year.
Now, are the snook spawn, is that over with, or are they still going at it?
We're still on the tail end of it. It definitely seems like we're not getting those big breeder fish as much as we were, but it's definitely good. And I think when snook season opens September 1st, it's going to be pretty easy to catch keeper size fish, because there's been some nice slot sized fish getting caught every other day. So there's plenty around, and I think it's going to be a good start to the fishery, because we got a lot of bait fish still lingering around and not a lot of cold water.
Excellent. John, thank you so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yes, sir. Look forward to talking to you next week.
All right. Captain John Earhart with a great report out of Stuart, Florida. All right, that means it's Miami time, but before we go there, let's hear from Academy Sports and Outdoors. Academy Sports and Outdoors' mission is to provide fun for all by carrying all the best gear from top brands, including Columbia, Yeti, Costa, Penn, Shimano, and more at prices that you're going to love. Whether you're planning on spending the day at the beach, hosting friends in the backyard, or reeling in a big catch, Academy has a wide assortment of sports and outdoor products that will guarantee that you have fun out there. When shopping at Academy, customers will be able to take advantage of in-store services, including free assembly on grills, check that out, and bikes, scope mounting, bore sighting, line winding, spooling, you name it, they do it. They'll fill your propane tank, for my goodness sakes. Exchanges and the ability to purchase hunting and fishing licenses are fantastic. With Academy's best price guarantee, if you find a better advertised price elsewhere, not only will Academy match it, but they'll beat it by 5%. Hey, the new store in Panama City is open and cooking, and look out, Tampa, you're on the horizon. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. Now we're going to head down to Miami to check in with the king of all charter boats, Captain Ray Rocher. Ray, how are you?
I'm good. I don't know. I don't know if I'm the king. But
I'm giving it to you.
Maybe like a lower prince. I don't know.
I tell you what, Cap, you've been blessed to spend your life on the ocean. I think it's fantastic. I think a lot of us are in that boat. It sure has been a fun ride. Ray, yes, I got to be honest with you. There's some stuff coming from the federal government that's scaring me. One of them is the right whale proposal, to where boats bigger than 35 feet have got to stay under 10 knots during right whale calving season to avoid a collision with the right whale. The other one is closed areas. Now, this wouldn't affect you guys too much, but it'd affect me in Jacksonville big time. Completely closing bottom fishing to areas where red snapper is an incidental bycatch. Because, Ray, are you aware that we are still undergoing overfishing red snapper? Did you know that, Ray?
I know that's their claim, but I can't say that I agree with it, because I'm catching plenty of red snapper in Miami. How about that?
That's it. See, they're looking in the wrong place. That's the problem. Oh, Colin, the other thing that scares me, Ray, now they're talking leases for windmill farms, and boats will not be allowed anywhere around the windmills for fear of interaction there. Man, isn't sport fishing a little too important to Florida to let this stuff happen?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, we know it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and not to mention, there's so many peripheral benefits to fishing. I make a big effort to bring as many high school kids on our boats as ride-along mates, and many of them have gone on to work on big sport fish boats. And, you just watch that, not only the lifestyle that sport fishing allows people like you and me, starting out as young people and enjoying our lives on the water, but how about all the people that we introduce this type of fishing to? And it's just, for me, I can't even explain how important I think sport fishing is, whether it be recreational or charter. And I'm not anti-commercial. I have many commercial licenses and spent a lot of my years commercial fishing, But obviously, the recreational and charter groups, introduce a lot of people to sport fishing and utilize the resource, I think, very well based on the rules that we have today. So it's important.
Ray, we got to be able to let Ron DeSantis, Marco Rubio, these guys know, Rick Scott, these guys that govern our state. Who's local in your area with the federal government that people need to contact? Do you know?
Well, I mean, I sat on a lot of federal and state boards, so I have some kind of inside people that I talk to, and I don't know that they want their phones blown up, but any of the Congress people that represent your area, they all should be aware of it. So I don't think it's really that critical to say, you got to call this one and not that one. The more information they receive about it, and of course, always be respectful and always be as kind, but obviously fact filled. Those are the things that I think go the furthest when you're dealing with people on the federal level. They're quick to sniff out somebody that they think is radical, and they don't pay them any attention. But the more the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's all I can say.
Yep.
And when I sat on the Dolphin Wahoo advisory panel for the South Atlantic Council for about 12 years or so, and a lot of people think public comment doesn't matter, and it actually does get considered. In our meetings, there was reference to it on many occasions, and of course, people on the council also have, if not a voice in it, they actually have contacts and better, what's the right word? They get more, what's
traction.
The right word? They get more traction. That's the word I was looking for. So don't forget council members that you may have some connection to. All these subjects, especially if you can put it in writing, it can land on their desk and make them more aware. ASA is also another great source. The American Sport Fishing Association is just a great source of support for recreational, and of course charter boats fall under that label. They spend a lot of money going to Washington, and they've got all the, their interest is in the right place.
Yeah, and Ray, I got to tell you, you really hit on something that struck a nerve with me, because I've seen it so many times in 100 different hearings. The minute you speak disrespectfully, you lose them. They're not. If you attack a council member or something personally, forget it. Don't call them idiots. Don't go through all that and who's paying you and all that garbage. No, speak respectfully. State your case. Tell them how important sport fishing is to you and how we're not going to let it go. We are here to stay. Cap, as always, we appreciate it. By the way, how was your fishing this week?
Decent. Some dolphin are showing up a little bit better. Today was a good day. Quite a few throwbacks, but plenty of keepers. 30 pounds was our biggest fish today, and the yellowtails also. Yeah, yellowtails have been biting good, and a few other fish on the wrecks, a few muttons, a few jacks. So definitely worth doing fishing.
Boy, you're not kidding. 30 pounds is a good one. Thank you, Cap. We appreciate the heck out of it, and we'll talk with you next week.
Yes, sir. Take care.
All right, Captain Ray Rocher from Miami. Time to hit the keys. That's Brandon Storm country. But before we do, let's get a word from Shimano. I'm not sure who first coined the phrase, the only thing saltwater can't destroy is saltwater, but I know what that meant to the engineers at Shimano. That sounded like a challenge, and their response to that challenge is now on the shelves of Strike Zone Fishing. The new spinning reels are called Twin Power, and they feature the Infinity Drive. The Infinity Drive, that means that there's not a fish around that you can't stop. That's because of the new heat sink drag, which means a hot wahoo or a screaming tuna can run as fast or as far as they want, and you never have to worry about your drag heating up. Even better, the new Twin Powers are built to become the best reels ever at fighting saltwater intrusion. Listen, everybody's heard or experienced the problems with seeing the latest and greatest actually on the shelves of your local tackle shop. Well, I'm here to tell you that Shimano's very special partnership with Strike Zone means that you can always count on finding the latest and greatest lining the shelves of both Strike Zone locations.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils.
What?
Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is a mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to his name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to use second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat Facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. 10,000 Islands time. That means Steve Dahl's got a report for us. How we doing, Steve?
I'm doing good, Rick. How are you this week?
Outstanding. Hey, Steve, I'm going to Minnesota next week to fish for some smallmouths, eh?
Oh, yeah. Hey, you go get that Friday night fish fry, too,
Hey, it's pretty good there, You go down to Bowser's there and you get your cold draft and a fish fry. You can't beat it, brother, I'm telling you.
I'm with you.
All right, let's hear about real fishing. Let's hear about 10,000 Islands.
Yeah, we got no walleyes going on right now in our neck of the woods, but we definitely got some good fishing. I mean, it was another good week. Red fishing is still pretty good, and it's kind of odd because it's the end of dog days of summer, but it's been raining really good this week, and it's really kind of cooled down that water temperature, and which is great because the air temps have just been super balmy. But the reds are doing pretty good on those higher tides. You need pretty much the second half of the outgoing. It seems to be the deal. You can get them on the incoming, but they seem a little bit more fired up on the outgoing. If you wait a little bit, maybe about an hour after the tide's turned, and you should do pretty good. And I just think it's kind of pulling them a little bit more out of those mangrove shorelines. With it being so, hot, they just want to sit in that shade. But, as that tide falls out, they got to come out of there at some point. So, finding a little bit more luck with cut bait this week as opposed to pilchards. I haven't really thrown a ton of artificials this week, but the cut bait's been catching, cut ladyfish, cut mullet, kind of really getting some scent in the air. That's, really producing some numbers and some decent sized fish. We had, 2 fish pushing 32, 33 inches this week, and a couple snook pushing 40 inches this week.
Good fish.
Cut bait. So, yeah. So, the snook are definitely in the mix. They're a little bit on the small side with the exception of those 2 big ones that we talked about. But that's kind of been the deal. It just seems like they just weren't active earlier in the week, chasing baits, whether they be artificials or pilchard. So, when that happens, all you got to do is slow down with some cut bait. You can even, buy finger mullet from the bait shop if you want some frozen stuff. Fresh is obviously best, but they'll still even eat the frozen stuff. You might get a few catfish mixed in, here and there on the frozen stuff, but they're wanting the scent when that bite gets slow. So you can fire them up with that.
Gotcha. That sounds outstanding. Now, does your snook season open September 1st?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, we're back on, and then the region to the north of us, the redfish season, Greg Stamper's region, the redfish season opens up in the fall as well. So in September 1st. So that should alleviate some of the pressure that we've had, because a lot of people have been coming down to our region since the red tide days 3 years ago. Their region's been really closed down, so we're seeing a lot more fishing pressure. So that should open it up a little bit more too. So we'll see how that affects us in the next year.
You pretty happy with the snook regulations? Is it 1 from 28 to 32?
Yeah, I am. I mean, it's I'm a 100% kind of catch and release guy on snook. Always, pretty much have been since the big fish kill. With the freeze we had way back.
Yeah.
About 12 years ago. So I've kind of just always maintained that. Clients don't seem to mind. I think with technology now, I think guys are more interested in posting it to Instagram than they are eating it. So I think that instant gratification is better than it hitting the fillet table. So.
Steve, I don't fit in this world anymore.
I'm with you. I still love to eat my fish.
I do too, brother. I do too. All right, buddy. We appreciate it. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Oh, can't wait, Rick.
Our thanks to Steve Dahl. Steve's waiting for that snook season to open up on September 1st. I think they've got a good limit there. 1 fish, 28 to 32. That keeps the pressure off of them. Greg Stamper, if I'm right, in Southwest Florida, redfish opens up September 1st, doesn't it?
That's correct. We're up to 33 is the max for us on this side. You guys have to trim an inch off on your end, but that's all good.
No, not on my end. You talking about snook or are you talking about redfish?
Snook.
Oh,
snook,
okay. I see. You're 28 to 33?
Yeah, and the reds are going to be 18 and 27,
right,
just like they were in the past.
I see.
One per, which is fine. It's fine. But let me tell you, this week we had some really, really good tides, Rick. And on this side of the state, the tides are a really big deal. We had really good incoming this entire week with lots of moving water, and that really produced some really good mornings. Again, fishing early is very important, but we got in the tarpon twice this week where they were fired up, and we put a lot of them in the air. We touched a few, which was fantastic. The redfish bite continues to be good. All of these fish, though, are big fish. These are all upper and over slot fish. We're still not getting very many of those rat reds or smaller redfish. I'm hoping as we get closer to October that changes, but we'll see about that. Now, a lot of snook in the back bays, but nothing of any real size. Most of the fish are those juniors. They're still around that 18, 19 inches, like the small size. And then we get them up to about 24, 25. I saw no real big fish this week. I'm sure they're around, but, we were throwing whitebaits, and you'd think you'd get a few here and there. Didn't really happen to us. Now, I got to tell you one or two things before I talk about offshore. This week, I had two different things that happened. Unfortunately, it wasn't on my boat, but I've heard from Dave up at Lear's Economy, and he's not kidding you around.
Nope.
There was a guy running across Charlotte Harbor, and he saw all this action, all these baits jumping out of the water. And he ran over to it, he was going down, and he got up to it, and there was an entire school of flying fish in Charlotte Harbor.
I'll be darned. Isn't that something?
They're like 30 miles lost. That's crazy.
Yep.
Now, on another crazy thing that happened this week, and this came from a buddy of mine. He likes to fish at night. He was fishing on a bridge. Can't tell you the bridge right now, Rick. I'll tell you in private. But,
okay.
But he was throwing large swim baits because he likes to go after snook and tarpon and stuff. And he ended up bagging a 15-pound Cubera snapper.
How about that? You don't see that every day off a bridge, do you?
You don't see flying fish. You don't see Cubera snappers.
Nope.
So it's kind of a weird thing. But I thought I'd throw that out there because you never know, I guess, what's going to happen. We've had good water as far as the quality has been. We haven't had any red tide. And I don't know. I guess some of these things just happen. Greg,
south of me, Jimmy Ross's region, Central Florida, there was a boat that by water was 4.3 miles from the ocean. All right? Fishing a live mullet. They got a bite. Give me 3 guesses.
He's so close.
He's 4 miles from the ocean now.
It's sailfish, a marlin. I mean, I'm gonna have to do a crazy weird thing.
But it was it was a 42-pound kingfish. That doesn't happen every day, does it?
That's a big boy. We get them in here in another month or so, but not that size.
Yeah,
right?
But they don't come 4 miles up the river, do they?
No, not
I mean,
at all.
that's pretty weird there now.
Every once in a while, Rick, we get them. I hear about them being caught off of like the causeways out by Sanibel, but I think that's just kind of a random thing. But they ain't going to be 43 pounds. I promise you that. They're going to be like give or take.
I tell you, I walked out on my dock. I'm a little over 2 miles from the ocean. I walked out on my dock one night, looked in the dock lights, and there was something that looked like sargassum. It was just floating on the water. Okay, just weird, but it had some movement to it. So I thought, I got to find out what that is. So I grabbed my landing net, which I shouldn't have done. I should have thrown my shrimp net. But I grabbed my landing net and almost put it on the dock when it fell through the mesh, hit the water, and took off. It was a flying fish. And he flew halfway across the river. It was cool. Greg, that's what makes our sport so addictive. We don't know what's going to happen with the next bite.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. You know, and then going back, the offshore guys are still doing very well. I didn't see anybody this week that I saw that went out far, but the guys that did come in, they're still hammering all those snappers. And we're talking about the mutton, the mangroves mainly, and some of these fish are about 3-4 pounds, so good-sized fish. And they're still picking up a lot of those yellowtails that are decent size, but nobody got out that far this week that I talked to for those big blacks and gags and stuff.
Well, Mother Nature has her way of taking care of those big blacks and gags to where you got to get the right conditions. We only get those right conditions ever so often.
That's right.
Greg, as always, we appreciate it, buddy. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
All right, tight lines. Hopefully I have some more cool stuff to tell you.
You got it. Greg Stamper from Southwest Florida. Time to talk to one Ray Markham. But before we do that, let's check in with the Castaway Hat Company. You know, I'll bet you don't even remember the days that all us cool kids, we'd rub baby oil mixed with iodine to help us get even darker in the summertime. Being burnt was cool. And even if you weren't a surfing guide, you sure looked the part. Oh man, have we paid the price for our vanity. We never knew the skin problems and health damage that awaited us later in life. Today's fishermen have the option of being so much healthier in the sun than we ever thought of, thanks in no small part to Castaway Hat Company, who not only provides our podcasters with Castaway straw hats, but they make the coolest prints on the underside of the brims you ever saw. You may think your Bimini top or T-top blocks the sun, but as an awful lot of us OGs can tell you, you can't have enough protection from sun damage. Do what we do. Put on the sunblock and put on your Castaway straw hat. You'll look the part of today's best anglers, and you'll even be helping the environment. For each Castaway hat sold, the Castaway Company is going to pay to have 1 pound of nasty trash removed from our waterways. The burning Florida sun won't be roasting your skin, and believe me, when you age a few years, you'll thank us old guys that spent a lifetime on the water. So go to CastawayHatCo.com and get your best sun protection today. The Castaway Hat Company, a hat for every adventure. Our thanks to Greg Stamper for a great Southwest report where he says the snook and redfish are biting really, really well. Let's move up to West Central and find out what Ray Markham has to say. Good afternoon, Captain Markham.
Well, howdy.
How are you, my boy?
Well, I'm kind of in the midst of a battle and a cold, even though it's hot.
Yeah,
so
you sound like
I don't know how that works, but fishing's been real good, actually. I say real good, comparatively speaking. Nothing like it was 5 or 6 years ago, but still, I think there's a little bit of glimmer of hope here. Lot of things coming up here this coming week with reopening of snook. I've seen guys just really targeting snook lately. They got to be reminded, though. I mean, these fish will be spawning into next month, and even though they're open, I mean, the number of fish that we have that are in the slot, I think is not that great. there's a lot of overslot fish and a lot of small fish. But if you're looking to go out and bag a slot fish, I would think twice about it myself. I try and talk some of the guys out of keeping some fish, if the situation warrants it. And I think right now maybe it does. We still got situations with redfish, but I'll tell you, there's some areas that are just loaded with them. And, there's a couple of new lures that I've been trying out that, Mirror put out. One of them it's a smaller size, kind of like a top dog, but it's got a mullet imitation, skin series. It's the Pro Sea Eyes, and it's a beautiful lure. I mean, it looks just like a finger mullet. And if you can find a school of finger mullet that are jumping around, or not finger mullet, but schools of mullet that are jumping, especially big mullet, chuck that thing in the middle of it, and you're bound to find a redfish somewhere with it.
Cool.
They've got some other stuff cooking. The Heavy Dean, which is coming up, is going to be really great for this fall and winter once things start cooling down. But everything else has been pretty good. The guys, we've got a closure coming up this week on red grouper. That starts at midnight tomorrow night, the 29th. So, the pictures I've been seeing have been absolutely phenomenal. The guys with the Go Fast boats are probably bringing in some of the biggest fish, and some of these fish are 30, 40 pounds.
Woo! That's a big red grouper. Woo!
No kidding. Yeah. And they're getting gags too, and some others, but lots of mangrove snapper. Oh my gosh, you'd think it's spawning season in the middle of the year.
I got to tell you, Ray, if I had to pick a fish that was the fish of the year for 2022 for the whole state of Florida, it would be mangrove snapper. We've had
I don't think I'd argue with you.
Better year on them. Mangrove snapper and tarpon have had a better year than anything else has, I'm convinced.
I won't argue with you there. But what I am a little bit concerned about is bait fish. By now, usually we see quite a few Spanish mackerel here. I'm not really seeing the big schools of bait like we typically have here, and I think that's probably the reason. I haven't talked to William Tony to the north of me, but when they start moving south a little bit, then I think we'll start seeing some action.
Gotcha. Ray, great report. Thank you for it. Please make sure we can check with you next week.
Yes, sir. I'll take my meds.
All right, I look forward to it. You keep yourself healthy, brother. We'll talk to you
All
next
right,
week. Captain Ray Markham from West Central. Now we're going to have a special appearance by the mayor of Homosassa, who has recently learned the theme song to the movie Frozen. Hit it, William Tony.
I can't, Rick. I've been trying to keep it out of my head the whole time.
No. I'll call you up about 10:30 tonight and remind you.
Yeah, I know. You don't have to. It's on 24/7 here at the Tony House, so it's all good. Seriously, we don't even have to sing it. It's just on full time.
I understand. How's your fishing, Cap?
It's been pretty good. I tell you what, we've had a really good redfish bite at the first part of the incoming all the way through to the outgoing, high outgoing. We've been getting nice redfish. Not too many big schools around, but starting to see some pretty decent-sized pods on the outside western points of your keys. What I've been using mostly and had best luck with is either a live pinfish about 2 to 3 inches, or if it's a bigger hand-sized pinfish, cutting it up into chunks. And I know shrimp work very well, but the problem is right now we got a lot of pinfish out there, so even a jumbo select shrimp doesn't last too long on the hook with the pinfish around. So go with the cut bait to keep more bait in the water and catch more redfish.
William, I tried to shrimp off my dock last night, and unfortunately, I wasn't smart enough to wait for it to get dark to bait up. I baited like right about, just before dark. I threw the net the first time. If I had one pinfish, I had 40.
Oh, wow.
You can't bait for shrimp in the daytime, Cap. Doesn't work. Pinfish
No, doesn't work.
And they're really fun to pick out of that little mesh too. Once they
You're incorrect about that. You will end up with fins in your ankles. They call them pinfish for a reason. Hey, William, you have really educated me, and I hope a lot of our East Coast guys, on the value of pinfish as bait for reds. We don't ever use them. Now, you cut the dorsals off of yours, right?
Absolutely. Like if I get one that is about, say 3 to 4 inches of that size, I cut its back dorsal off. Basically, I turn a oblong football-shaped pinfish into a square.
Okay.
So cut its dorsal and then cut its tail, and then that little corner that is just where you made the cuts, that's where I place my 3/0 hook right there.
Gotcha.
And the pinfish is still alive. He's struggling, but what I found, I get a lot better hookups on my redfish. Rarely do I miss one. Now, the only time that I can tell you when I'm using something like cut pinfish, I do like the head of a big pinfish because of the weight and everything. So I would be hooking it just behind the eyes, say back near the crown of the pinfish's head.
Right.
And it works really well for 2 reasons. It will sink and go down fast, like if I'm freelining a heavy bait up under mangroves, that bait will go back in there further faster. Now, if you use the midsection of the pinfish, a lot of times where its gut cavity is, will get air, and it will float, and it'll stay high in the water, which will get you tangled up on the mangroves, or seagulls and birds will, swoop down and take it. So a lot of times you can puncture that and squeeze the air out, or just, kind of cut it so it lets the air out. Cool. And it'll sink, but not as the same rate as the pinfish head. So you got heavy current, a little bit deeper water, and want to get that bait further back in there, go with a good-sized pinfish's head.
What a great tip. And I will do that the next time I fish for reds off my dock, I promise you. William, we appreciate it as always, and there is something I wanted to tell you before you go.
All right.
The cold never bothered me anyway.
No. You just helped me and just buried me at the same time because you had it out of my head, and now here I go again.
All right, Cap, stand by. We appreciate it. Bye-bye. Our thanks to William Toney, who is now watching 24 Hours of Frozen with his young daughter with the song stuck in his head. Let's pull up in the Northwest section and talk with Captain Kevin Lanier. Kevin, how we doing?
Captain Rick, we're doing just fine, but I will tell you this much. We are far from frozen here in the Panhandle.
I know it, but William Toney's young daughter is never far from frozen. That's her movie, buddy. Tell me how the fishing is.
Hey, fishing's been pretty good. All the red snapper fishing is over right now for everybody. So the focus is on grouper fishing, and, we're getting out there and getting vermilions and, porgies. And there's been quite a bit of cobia caught here recently. And the strange thing about the cobia we're catching right now have all been on the bottom.
Huh.
We're catching cobia on live baits on the bottom.
Good deal. Legal fish?
Oh, very nice fish. We got one the other day. It weighed in at the dock 47 pounds.
That's a very, very nice cobia.
Yes. So that's going on. We got some blackfin tuna coming across the docks, and
good.
So it's been it's been the water temperature is right at just about 90 now. So that has really slowed a lot of stuff down, and we've got scalloping going on in St. Joe Bay right now. So it's kind of even put a damper a little bit on the inshore fishing because of that. So, but there's still plenty to do around here, and we're still having a good time. But we are taking a collective deep breath and getting a little bit of relaxation right now.
Yeah. My motors keep saying, "What? We get another day off? Are you kidding me?" I know. Hey, I got to ask you about the scalloping up there right now. How's it going for them? Do you know?
Well, it opened up pretty good. It wasn't quite as good as it was last year, but every year is different. You never know. Not a bunch of limits I'm hearing, but some quality. People are getting plenty of scallops. We went out on the opening Saturday and we had a blast. Had a feast afterwards, and but there are scallops around to be had. They're just not extremely plentiful this year.
Now, let me ask you a question. If you were in charge of scallops, what would you change the limit to? Or would you change it?
I would probably make it I would probably make it a single 5-gallon bucket boat.
Okay.
And not the 10 gallons. I mean, I think that, and I know it. People go, well, if I'm going to go out here, I want to get as many as I can. I get that, but we overregulate some fisheries, we underregulate some fisheries, and we pay for it either way.
Balance is so hard, Cap. You ain't kidding. Hey, Kevin, we appreciate it so much. I'm tickled to death to hear about that cobia. It has been a little better on the East Coast this year, without a doubt. The only problem is they all seem to be following big bull sharks, and the minute you hook one, the first thing he does is the big bull shark turns around and eats him. So that's been an issue for us. But we do seem to have a few more cobia this year. It's okay that most of them are shorts. They're going to grow up. We're going to get them. Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate it so much.
All right, Captain Rick. We'll talk to you next time.
Talk to you next week, buddy. Captain Kevin Lanier. That means it's time for our last stop. We can't get out of Florida till we go out through Pensacola, and that's where Captain Tyler Massey is large and in charge. Tyler, how we doing?
We're doing good, Rick. How are you guys?
Good. Tell me about your fishing.
So yeah, we've had some good fishing this last week or so. We've had some decent weather, and this time of year we typically have some nice weather. Before the cold fronts get here, so it's a good time to get out and go fishing. And the waterway is not as crowded too. Kids are going back to school, so this time of year makes for some nice time to be out there and do some fishing. So we'll start out inshore. This time of year it's not super red hot bite inshore, but we are starting to catch some redfish, some black drum mixed in. Good fishing for those is around the bridge pilings. So we have a lot of bridges in our bay system. Anywhere up against the pilings, using live shrimp or any kind of live fish bait. Also, fishing like residential boat docks, pitching baits under them is doing well too. It's not as good as it's going to get, but it's definitely getting better. The redfish are moving from the river down to the bays a little bit more, so it's definitely been a decent bite for that. Also inshore, we're catching some flounder. They're starting to move in pretty good, and some mangrove snapper. And you can catch all those fish pretty much doing the exact same thing.
Oh, outstanding. Now, this is the time of year, and we need to remind people that where you guys are, that's as far north in the Gulf as the fish can migrate. You should be seeing some offshore pelagics this time of year, shouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. And this is the only thing that's been for the day trip guys, our water out front has been pretty terrible within 70 miles. It's been, green water, not the most ideal for the pelagics, but if you do an overnight trip or a little bit further, fishing around the oil rigs and that kind of stuff, it's been a lot better fishing. They're catching blue marlins, live baiting around oil rigs and pulling lures as well. Just around the fads and around the 60-mile stuff, it's just the water has not been, as good as it should be for us to get, catch some nice stuff. So, if the water clears up, it's definitely a go. They're going to be there. It's just been a little bit further away.
So you need some blue water is what you need.
Yep, we do. We need some blue water, and it'll help us. There's definitely some mahi scattered around, and you can still catch some, mostly on debris and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's just been tough, trolling for our billfish and that kind of stuff right out front.
Gotcha. Perfect. All right, Tyler, thank you so much for the report. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'll be here, Rick. We'll see you guys.
Okay, Captain Tyler Massey brings to a wrap what's been a fun evening this evening of doing the Florida Sportsman Action Spotter podcast. I tell you what, guys on the East Coast, man, you got to get in gear, okay? Our way of life is threatened. We've got right whale zones coming where you can't exceed 10 miles an hour. How about total bottom closures in areas where they might encounter red snapper? We can't have that. And windmill farms. The last thing we need is to close the ocean to silly windmills. Hey, you want to stop it, if you want to keep our way of life, get involved. Call your congressman. Call the governor. DeSantis is there for you. I'm telling you. And for us, it's Marco Rubio and Rick Scott. Send them letters. Send them phone calls. Let them know sport fishing has to be protected in Florida, along with Congressman John Rutherford for Northeast Florida. Make sure you get him. Okay, well, it's been a lot of fun this evening. Our thanks to our sponsors this week and every week with Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Shimano, bringing people and nature together. Tournament Master Chum, it's the best chum on earth, all right. Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. Young Boats, you want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids, you need to check out youngboats.com. The Castaway Hat Company, the hat that's helping save our seas. And Academy Sports and Outdoors, right stuff, low price, every day. Hey, for Florida Sportsman Magazine, until next week, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and we'll see you on the rip.